Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd just like to acknowledge His Excellency Sheikh Juma Ahmed Juma Al Maktoum, and also Zayed bin Surur Al Nahyan. It's a pleasure to be here. I've come from Australia this week, and it's wonderful to be at this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the landscape of trust is changing, and the institutions that we look to give us stability in an orderly way of life and a sustainable way of interacting are starting to lose their sheen. These institutions are being democratised. The power lodged in some of these citadels is ebbing away and to some extent moving the everyday person into the street. Let me give you a few examples. Consider bathers swimming in the sea. In the United Kingdom, do they trust the water to be clean and free of sewage? A few years ago, the public would look towards the Water Authority as the guardians. The Water Board would issue statements of cleanliness which would tell bathers whether or not they could swim safely there. But on days that the Water Authority had declared the water as safe, bathers began to notice that there was sewage in the water. So bathers ignored the authority and took matters into their own hands. They collected their own samples of water and ran their own test and posted their own assessments online about the state of the water. So if you now want to know if it's safe and pleasant to go for a swim, you ask the community who are becoming the collective authority. Water is just one piece of in this mosaic, but the changing landscape of trust goes beyond the authority type organisations also to the media. The BBC, which since the beginning of broadcasting has levied a central tax and delivered centralised programming, is now facing its final years in its current form. Both the central tax in the UK and the centralised programming are seen as anachronistic, because the average 10-year-old isn't watching BBC programming at all. 10-year-olds now are watching YouTube and programs like Ninja Kids, where, for example, the Myler family makes its own low-budget content and collects its revenue from the sales of hoodies and teddy bears and other merchandise, which tops up the YouTube advertising. This is centralised content paid for with a hybrid decentralised revenue model. We are in a decentralising world. You can see examples everywhere. At the simplest level, almost every organisation we know has had a data breach. In fact, 45% of companies have had data breaches in the last year alone. The internet services company Yahoo was subject to the largest data breach of all time. Initially, it was believed to have impacted 1 billion customers. However, Yahoo later confirmed in October of 2017 that it impacted 3 billion people. It was just one example. Our passwords, addresses, bank details have been shared in the dark web, along with, in many cases, our blood pressure, mental episodes, and our T-cell count. This is the context that blockchain steps into. And you could say the timing of this technology is perfect. My own company, Powerledger, is part of this decentralising landscape. We make software that's about sharing solar rooftop energy and battery energy. And we made an active choice not to manage the data payment system in a centralised way. The reasons for this were very simple. When you start collecting data and payments, you become, to some extent, a bank. And you have to become auditable. Auditable, of course, by a centralised authority. The layer of responsibility can become onerous, and we didn't want to become akin to a bank because we're all about transforming energy, and we have enough to do every day without being a financial institution on top of that. So blockchain and a decentralised approach works well for us. In our local energy markets, neighbours can pay each other in fiat currency, all tallied on the blockchain, or in digital currency, including in our very own denomination of cryptocurrency called Power. So there's no friction charges that are associated with conventional banking. In fact, the whole thing is self-auditing. And so even small and frequent payments are worth making and happen automatically. So everyone's happy. But there are some trickier issues that we have to deal with. As we start sharing electricity, and with it we start sharing our consumption habits, there are privacy issues to contend with. My electricity consumption drops when I go on holiday. So how do I protect myself from a burglar pretending to be a neighbourly power-sharing partner, and who wants to know when I'm out so he can drop in? That's a simple example, but I want my fellow prosumers and consumer producers of electricity to know the electricity habits, but I don't want the burglars to know about that. So electricity information can reveal more. Could software start to cross-reference our car charging data to work out where someone is going of an evening? That person's car recharging data might be used to track their goings-on. And if you're a celebrity with paparazzi tracking your every move, that's no joke. It seems clear that we'll have to evolve a sophisticated architecture of permissions. And soon we'll have a situation where devices are authorised to know things about us which we're not. We've already started to see this. My computer knows your Wi-Fi password, so I can work at your home, but I don't know the password personally. This is the future of Internet of Things. We will still end up trusting devices in the way, we will end up trusting devices in the way we have never trusted institutions previously. But devices are going to be subject to far greater scrutiny still. A number of organisations are talking about data confidence fabric, which Dell created and made open source. Essentially, this is a blockchain-based appraisal system that for every device that issues data, no matter how banal. So just as we as individuals have credit worthiness, the Internet of Things is going to have data worthiness. Your car may be a 989 or a 235 for each and every aspect of the data coming out of it. It will be decentralised, impartial, immutable, tamper-proof, which will evaluate an object for the veracity of its data stream. What many thinkers agree is that rather than companies holding data, we will all hold our own data. We will give companies permission, or not, to access the data which is held securely in our own data wallets. So if my bank wants to send me a letter, their computer contacts my wallet and asks me for the address and my correct title and then sends me a letter. If a spam company wants to send me a letter, it may find that my wallet address declines the request. If the bank gets hacked, they no longer have my details on file, and so I am protected. This personal wallet concept has some interesting consequences. I can hold my medical data in it. When my doctor wants to see my records, he or she does the same as my bank and asks for permission. I may structure a series of permissions on my wallet like we do with our Facebook and Instagram accounts. I might sell my own medical data to certain types of pharma companies, but not to others. My blood pressure and my heart history I can monetize to my friendly pharma company, but not to non-trusted pharma companies. They, in turn, will not be allowed to redistribute my data to anyone without paying further royalties or asking for permission from me. And so in the future, companies like Yahoo may not hold your records and therefore may not be targets to hacks. Indeed, in the future, we may all become owners of our own back catalogue of data like Elton John or Bob Dylan. Incidentally, Dylan has reportedly sold his back catalogue for a 9-figure sum. The sum of your data and my data will of course be vastly smaller and the numbers of data much higher, but we will control much of the process. It may well be that we have an AI agent working on our behalf, selling our data to a variety of destinations that we have approved in principle, and companies trying to sell us the notion that they are worthy of seeing our wallets and recruiting our data. And in return for this, we could have significant benefits. Medicines could be tailored for our genome, and electricity price offers tailored to our requirements, or rather our devices' requirements in our homes and businesses. This wallet may be owned by us, but we may not be able to see all of it. For example, if my psychiatrist were to diagnose me with a severe bipolar disorder, another psychiatrist can see it, but the pharma company may not be able to see it, or only in aggregated form. But my insurance company and even I might not be able to see that. It may be that some companies can see some of it, but other bits are fuzzed out. Just like when Google shows you a street map with number plates on a car fuzzed out. This is going to be a metaphor for how we trade data in the future. I think this will be the impact of blockchain. Yes, it will change our technology, but perhaps more importantly, it will accelerate the tempo of change of all of our institutions. This will be the new world of Web3, where the internet maintains the landscape of trust rather than institutions doing it all. And they will do so in a distributed way. People often ask what blockchain will do, and isn't it just a gimmick? My reading is that it will have a huge impact on our society, but it's going to be subtle, slow, and all-encompassing at first, and then suddenly a torrent. And for those of you who know the 1963 book by Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, Kuhn describes this sort of change, and it happens, he says, without reason or debate, just through the dying out of the old guard, and in this case, some of our crankier institutions. He coined in the book a term that we use every day called the paradigm shift. And for those of you planning to take a swim in a nearby stretch of coastline, this shift can't come soon enough. Thank you.